This is episode 89 with Ajit Nawalkha.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Bryan Teare.
Creating a phenomenal business requires patience. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Bryan Teare, and those were the words of this week's guest and last week's guest, Ajit Nawalkha. Now, before we get into this part of the interview with Ajit, a shout out again to our sponsors. It's the guys at Rooster, which is the awesome alarm clock app that allows you to wake up to whatever tone you choose. So you can skip the boring standard tones that come with your phone and choose to wake up to something like voice notes from friends and family, inspiring channels like one from yours truly, motivational stuff, meditation stuff, world news, sports headlines, and so much more. You can check that out on the Google Play Store or the App Store at Rooster Alarm and Audio Treats. Now, on to this week's episode. And as I mentioned last week, this is the second half or a continuation of the interview that I had when I sat down with my buddy Ajit Nawalkha. And in last week's episode, if you haven't checked that out, we spoke all about goal setting and why the standard way of setting goals doesn't work, leads to lack of fulfillment, and how we should be setting goals. In this week's episode, we're going to shift gears a little bit. Now, in case you didn't hear, Ajit is an entrepreneur, business coach, founder of EverCoach, and the co-founder of Mind Valley, which is one of the biggest publications in the personal development space. And in this episode, I want to share, as I said, the second half of the interview, where we speak about the amazing world of coaching, specifically pursuing it as a career. As you know, coaching is something I'm super passionate about, but there are a lot of misconceptions out there about the profession. Ajit addresses some of those in our interview and also shares how someone can become successful in the coaching industry. Ajit has a new book out for coaches called The Book of Coaching for Extraordinary Coaches, which you can check out at the show notes. Now, in this week's episode, you're going to learn who is best suited to becoming a coach, how to separate yourself from everyone else as an extraordinary coach, the 3 components of all successful coaches, the most important factor in building a successful business, how to coach clients who are older or more successful than you, and the 3 elements of a thriving coaching business. Now, as always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at bryanteare.com/089. But for now, guys, let's go hang out with Ajit. A big part of this show is obviously entrepreneurship and that whole conversation. And one of the ways of becoming an entrepreneur nowadays is to become a coach, which is obviously something that's really important to you and I. Tell us a bit about choosing coaching as a career path.
So coaching as a career path it's something that caught my fascination because of all the help that I got from coaches and teachers and educators. So when I say coach, I actually mean coaches who coach and coaches who also educate, because there is many sub contexts when you say coaching. There could be sports coaching, there could be performance coaching, there could be health coaching, there could be wellness coaching, there could be life coaching, there could be training, and that could be assumed as coaching sometimes. So there are many segments to it. So for me, coaching is something that showed up in my life when I needed it most, which was in my early 20s when I really needed help. These were coaches that didn't even know they were coaching me, but they were coaching me by asking really great questions, changing my mindset, helping me think very, very differently than the reality that I was in, changing what is possible for me from what I thought was possible for me. So I was always grateful for coaches, and that's how I started I'd always been interested in coaching. I only realized it recently to be able to say, okay, can I create a platform that allows coaches to be even more empowered? Because I found more and more coaches struggling. And I was like, that's not how it should be. They're adding so much value. There must be something I can do. Is that led to creation of EverCoach, right? So that's kind of the dialogue of EverCoach. Now, coaching as a profession is profound if your need as human needs, and it might be a little out of context because I don't know how many people on your podcast would know this, but we are driven by our needs and our principles and our values, right? And if your needs and values are in a place to saying, how can I contribute to people? How can I help more people? How can I express my love? If those are your values, coaching is a great way to express that out there in the world. It's a great way to be able to take somebody from the place they are at to a place that you can show them and help them get to. So coaching is a place for those types of individuals. If you are looking and you like interacting with people and you like interacting and seeing change in people, that's a profession for you. So coaching is like, generally, if I have to just generally talk about coaching as a profession, that's the type of individuals that find coaching as a profession really, really exciting. You love people, you like to see people change their lives, you like to contribute, you like to show up and really help people, and you feel empowered by it, not drained by it.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's obviously, especially today compared to when you first experienced coaching, there's a lot of coaches out there. But what really separates an ordinary coach from a really extraordinary coach?
How they coach. That's the biggest separator between an ordinary coach to an extraordinary coach. How you coach somebody. So what I often see is a lot of coaches that are there and just starting out. A lot of times there is not enough work that is dedicated or put into their coaching. So they sometimes would do a certification, sometimes they won't even do a certification, they will just start, and that's okay. But they need to understand that that's also where they need to continue the work and continue to understand what really will create a result with their clients. Because a coach's ability to create the results with the client is the only difference between a coach and an extraordinary coach, right? So that's because everything else is available for everyone. Your marketing ability and so forth is all available, but it shows up the moment you show up as a coach and you're not really good, your marketing ability will fall flat on your face, right? So you have to be a phenomenal coach, which means that you are able to create results for your clients. However those results are, it could be through education, it could be through whatever that is. But if you're able to create results for your clients, you will be an absolutely extraordinary coach. And that's the first thing that you require. The second thing that you require is that you continuously work on yourself, which means that you are not stopping your own learning because now you're so busy serving the clients or taking care of the clients, right? So you got to be consistent about saying, what is the book I'm reading? What's the program I'm doing? What's the event I'm going for? And you got to be really, really dedicated to be able to create that, to be able to change yourself and evolve yourself every single day. And lastly is your ability to be able to create a phenomenal business out of it. Now, creating the phenomenal business out of it has a big factor of patience. And patience is required, especially in the early formative 2 years of the business. Because what happens in the first 2 years of the business is you're getting a lot more no's than yeses. You're learning how to really coach somebody. You are really working on yourself on how you're dealing with rejection, how you're dealing with conversations where they don't go your way, how you're dealing with when you're not able to get a result with your client, which means it's like punching you again and again and again. And your ability to be able to take those punches and get back up is what really defines you on the element of the business development of the coaching business. Most of the coaches give up too fast, is why they go from ordinary coach to not being a coach or doing something else, versus the coaches that start and they become phenomenal over the course of time.
Yeah, it's a message I've brought up again and again on the show. Is like, I think the thing that separates, and this applies not just to coaches but any self-employed entrepreneur, the thing that separates the ones that make it from the ones that don't, I think, is just how long you're willing to stick in and get those no's and just tell yourself, like, no matter what happens, I'm not going to give up. And I think the people that really make it are the ones that are able to stay in it for the long run. But something that I wanted to just touch on is, what about someone that's maybe they're getting started or they've coached for a little while and they feel a little intimidated to coach people who appear more successful or older or like kind of elite executive clients. How do you deal with that kind of, I guess it's sort of imposter syndrome, but feeling like people have achieved a lot more than you, and how could I coach someone like this?
So I think a better question to ask is, I understand the question that comes up, which is, well, they are more successful than me, they are more older than me, and so forth, and how can I coach them? But if you really think about it, as a coach, you don't have to be in the situation that the person is in, or has to be like in the past in that situation, or currently in that situation. Because if that's the scenario, everybody will have to become a coach. For example, if I was to consult a business that does 100 million in sales, the person who is doing 100 million in sales is probably not a coach at this point, right? Who will they hire? They need help still, right? So first of all, to understand that there is no real paradigm that says, oh, to be able to coach a CEO of a $100 million company or a $1 billion company, you need to be the CEO of a $100 million company or a $1 billion company. And that's only when you're allowed to coach them. That makes no sense, because that way we'll have to have all the billionaires become coaches right now and then coach the people that are not billionaires. But that wouldn't work. We know that, right? They're not coaches. They might do an occasional help somewhere or give a talk somewhere, but that's pretty much it. That's where the buck stops. And to understand as a coach, so that's first. I'm saying this only because that removes that the thought of saying, oh, I need to be that successful. You don't have to be. And by successful, I mean successful financially, right? Because success is not really only a paradigm of money, right? So that's first. So that kind of makes that ridiculous. So that won't make any sense. So you don't have to wait for that, because that way nobody's going to get coaching help, right? Secondly, you need to understand everybody is a human being, right? And essentially it boils down to human emotion and human conditioning, right? You can be a millionaire, you can be a billionaire, you can be a trillionaire. It doesn't matter. All of us are human beings as of now, right? We all are a function of emotions and our mental states.
More, yes.
Yeah, our body states, our emotion states, our mental states, and so forth. So there is, at any given point, that's just what the function is. So that means, as a coach, till the time you know how to tackle those scenarios, you can tackle the human being, because you're working with a human being. You're not working with something that is different. It's not an alien that you're dealing with. It's a human being that you're dealing with. So if it's a human being, they will process information in a particular way, and it's independent to different people. But as a coach, that's your reading to go, okay, how do I communicate so they can get the message that really needs to go there, right? And if they have hired you as a coach, also understand they already believe you can bring the change to them, right? So 3 factors. First, don't think about only more successful people can coach less successful people, because that's not how it works, right? And that applies to age, that applies to money, that applies to whatever is your paradigm of success. Secondly, know that all human beings, all people that you're coaching are human beings. They're not aliens. So you don't have to think of them as a function of something else. They are a function of your emotions, your physical state, and your mental state, and so forth. And lastly, when you are working with people who are more successful than you and they have hired you, they already believe that you can bring the change. If they're even listening to you, let's say they haven't even hired you, they are listening to you right now, they're focused on what you're saying, they already know or feel that you could be the person they're looking for. Even if you have an appointment with them, because nobody who is more successful than you has the time to talk to you. If in case you thought you were just nice to talk to, that's not the case. They're talking to you because they're like, I think this is valuable, right? Especially if they're talking to you in a business context, right? So that means you are valuable there, and you don't have to kind of go, oh, I don't know, but if I can propose to them. If they are talking to you, you can make a proposal, right?
I love that.
So that's kind of the paradigms that you have to think about when you are challenged by, oh, they are more successful than me. Doesn't matter. They're human beings.
Got it. Ajit, I do want to touch on the book you've just written with your wife, Nita. I think you actually wrote it in 8 days, which is crazy, but it is about coaching. In fact, it's called The Book of Coaching. Tell us about what we'll find in the book and that good stuff.
So firstly, we wrote it in 8 days. Actually, it was more like 10 days, but the book was in the works for 2 years. So it will be unfair if I say, well, we wrote the book in 10 days. It's not just about writing the book in 10 days. The work that has gone into the book has been for several years. It's just the writing part, because once you get to writing, when you've done all the work, it's much faster for you to just write it out. So the writing part of it was fast, but the real conceptualization, what to talk about and so forth, was actually work that was done much before and has been going on for several years at this point. So So that's kind of the correction there. The value is not worth 10 days value. The value is worth 2-3 years worth of research and actual execution worth value, and several $100,000 generated in sales through the strategies that we discussed there. What the book of coaching really talks about is 3 simple principles. It talks about the 3 elements that really matters for any coach to become successful. And by successful, I simply mean whatever definition of success you have, right? If it's impact to clients, then that's the definition of success. It's about freedom, then that's the definition of success. If it's about money, then that's the definition of success. Whatever is the definition of success you have fits the same model. And what we also discuss in the book is it's not a straight line kind of progress. It's a progress that's more circular. So what that means is, if you take care of these elements, or these 3 elements that I'll just discuss in 1 second, is if you continue to work on these 3 elements, it keeps creating progress for you, almost as if your 3 circles are expanding and giving you greater reach, greater wealth, greater freedom, and so forth, right? So the 3 elements are you, your methodology, and your business. By that, we simply mean that to create a thriving, successful coaching business defined by you in the way you want it, the first element that you really need to work on is you yourself as a human being. Till the time you work on yourself as a human being, you'll keep making progress. But at the same point of time, while you're working on yourself as a human being, you also want to work on your methodology. By methodology, it simply means, how do you create an impact with a client? What is it that you do that will allow the client to create that transformation? What are the questions you ask? How do you show up? What do you show up with? And so forth. And lastly is your business, which means simple business principles that you need to know and need to know how to execute on to create a thriving coaching business, right? So these are 3 simple elements that we talk about in the book. And what we do is we give you case studies, we give you stories, we give you some mindsets, we actually give you tools that you can follow up on. So it's not just a book where there's a bunch of theory, there's actually execution playbooks. So there's things that you can do immediately as you're reading the book. There are areas where you can literally go in and it gives you places to go or web pages to go and study more or get advanced training out of. So it's not just a book. It's actually a toolkit that you can keep with you pretty much all the time and pick it up and read it and find the direction to be able to go. If you're stuck with a client, if you're stuck with yourself, if you're stuck in your business, the book should be able to help you navigate out of any of those situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. And I'll link it up in the show notes. I've had a look through it myself and I know it's selling like crazy too. So if you're listening to this and your values do align with helping people improve their lives, then definitely go check that out. But Ajit, I do want to be mindful of the time. Before we wrap up here, I've got some quick fire questions at the end. So just the first thing that comes to mind in a sentence or 2 is perfect. The first one is, what do you wish you'd been told in your 20s?
It's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. It is going to be okay. I'm trying to be quick with my answer. Do you want me to expound on that, or
yeah? If you feel it's really important for people to hear, then let's do it.
Well, most of the time in 20s, we are very anxious about, will life work out fine? Will we get the degree? Will it work out? Will we get the job? Will we get fired? Will the business work out? Just know that everything's going to be okay.
I love that.
That's just something that I would have loved somebody would have told me.
What is the biggest opportunity for quarter lifers or people in their 20s today?
Technology. It's going so fast and it's so powerful. You can create the life you want to create at this point. You can have all the freedom you want. So it couldn't be a better time to live.
Mm-hmm. I've got one final question before I get to that. Where can people go to find out about you and EverCoach and Mind Valley and all the other projects you've got going on?
You can go mindvalley.com to know more about our company. You can go to evercoach.com if you're a coach and are curious about knowing more about coaching. You can go to thebookofcoaching.com if you want the book of coaching that we talked about. If you just want to hit up my website and just see my story and stuff, you can go to ajit.love, ajit.love, and it will redirect you to my main domain, which is ajitnawalkha.com, which will be really hard for you to spell. So let's just stick with ajit.love, ajit.love.
Yeah, I was going to say bringing your number one value into everything you do, but I think you just did that because of the spelling. No, yeah. I'm kidding. Ajit, I've got one final question. Before I get to that, I just want to acknowledge you for coming on today. And just the way that you go about everything you do from your business and your life. I know love is your number one value, and it just shines through everything that you do, and giving everything you have so openly and caringly. The final question that I do have is, what one thing can listeners do this week to start creating their own quarter life comeback?
Wow, that would be so different based on where you are in your comeback story. But if life's been hard and if you are struggling to figure out what you want to do and so forth, I would say take a piece of pen and paper, and just write down A, what your life has been, and B, what you would like your life to be, right? Don't put a timeline to it. Don't do anything crazy. Just simple what your life has been and what would your life, how you would like your life to look like, right? The reason why I say that is because when you write what your life has been, hopefully, and that's at least my hope, is you will be able to see that you have been able to figure it all out until now. You have been able to go through many struggles. You have been able to find solutions through those struggles. You have been able to create victories in the past. And I'm hoping that you will secure those victories and remember them. And that's when you will create what the life you want to create from here on. And hopefully, as you write what you want your life to look like in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years from now, what would happen is you would start to find that new power to be able to go, okay, what is it that I need to do today to be able to create the life that I want to create for myself going forward? So that's a simple tool, hopefully looking at your past and hoping for your future, that should give you some direction and new power to make your quarter life comeback.
Ajit Nawalkha, thank you so much for coming on the Quarter Life Comeback.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
So there you have it, guys and girls. That wraps up episode 89 of the Quarter Life Comeback podcast. And a big thanks again to Ajit for coming on the show and sharing his incredible story and his incredible wisdom over the last 2 episodes. Now, if you like this one, please share it around with your friends on social media and shoot me a tweet at Bryan Teare to let me know your biggest takeaway. For me, it was what Ajit shared about, there's really no such thing as not being able to coach someone who is older than you, richer than you, more successful than you, or whatever else excuse you want to insert into that bracket. It's all about how you show up. And, if someone is speaking to you, they are ready to work with you. So I really encourage you to go and check out all the links and resources we mentioned at the show notes, including Ajit's brand new book, The Book of Coaching for Extraordinary Coaches. And you can find all of that at bryanteare.com/089. Make sure you also head over to quarterlifecomeback.com and subscribe to the show to get every episode straight to your inbox as soon as it comes out, as well as so much more that I only share with subscribers. Thank you so much for being here again. I appreciate you listening more than you know. And until next week, guys, keep creating your quarter life comeback.